The public has a long-held fascination with detectives. Detectives see a side of life the average person is never exposed to. In this podcast series, I Catch Killers with Gary Jubilant, I'll be interviewing a whole range of people you come across as a detective, including police, bad guys and victims. I spent 34 years as a cop. For 25 of those years I was catching killers. That's what I did for a living. I was a homicide detective. I'm no longer just interviewing bad guys. Instead, I'm taking the public into the world in which I operated. The guests I selected have amazing stories from all sides of the law. The interviews are raw and honest, just like the world they inhabited. No one who steps into the world of crime comes out unchanged. Join me now while I take you into this world. This episode of I Catch Killers contains conversations that some listeners may find confronting or triggering. Discretion is advised. Welcome to another episode of I Catch Killers. We're recording from Cafe Katana in inner west Sydney. Listeners today will be given an insight into a world that is rarely discussed. Today we'll be talking to a former tactical police officer, Brett Pennell. During his time in the New South Wales Police, Brett was a member of the elite Tactical Operations Unit. They are the guys you see in black overalls, ballistic vests and helmets, carrying a range of weapons more akin to a war zone. Their job is to resolve high-risk situations that are outside the skills and capability of normal police. They arrest dangerous armed offenders and resolve siege situations, amongst other things. It was police from the Tactical Operations Unit that stormed Link Cafe. They are at the sharp end of policing. Brett was also a police sniper. It is why, carrying out his duties as a sniper, he was required to exercise the ultimate powers that you have as a police officer, and that was to take another person's life. That happened in a siege in 2001 on a property in southwestern New South Wales. Understandably, this incident had an effect on Brett. Brett is no longer in the cops. Since leaving the police, he's written a book, Taking the Bark Off Good Men, which is a great read. I think you'll be surprised by Brett's honesty and openness about his time in the cops. We're going to learn about what it's like being a member of an elite unit at the sharp end of policing. Brett, welcome to I Catch Killers.
Thanks, Gary.
I appreciate you coming along.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Bit unusual, two ex-cops sitting here discussing this.
Well, I've listened to a couple of your earlier podcasts, mate, and I've been on the wrong end of the microphone a couple of times, so I'm actually reasonably comfortable now.
Okay, we'll see what we can do. We'll see if we can stuff this one up. I think the listeners are going to be fascinated by your story. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that wonder if they've got what it takes to work in the environments you worked in. So I think they're going to be very interesting. We're going to take you on a journey, or take the listener on a journey, what it's like to be a member of an elite unit like the Tactical Operations are. But before we do, just some housekeeping. Brett, could you please give me permission to record this conversation?
In lieu of recent events, yes, Gary.
Yes, and I think you'll make my legal team very happy. Tick, I've got that covered.
Done.
Before we find out who Brett Pennell is, I just want to say that having read your book, and I only finished it this week, and reading your book, full credit to you how raw and honest you have been in the impact policing has had on you. And it gives, I think, the reader, and it certainly made me reflect on things I've seen and done in the cops reading it, but full credit to you, Brett, on doing that. And I'd also like to thank you, now that I'm a member of the public, as a member of the public, for the work that you did, because you guys in the Tactical Operations Unit were the right at the sharp end, and when the shit went down, you were the last line of defence, and I'm very mindful of that, so full credit to you. Who was Brett before he joined the cops?
Interesting question, but I suppose I am going to pull you up on one thing very quickly, Gary. The word elite, I despise it. There's nothing elite about me. There's nothing elite about our people. But I'll explain that later to you of why. Yep. But Brett Pennell, before the cops, mate, I was a normal kid, very, very competitive in sport, particularly rugby league.
Yep.
Grew up in the best family in the world as far as I'm concerned. So, mate, just a normal kid kicking around, playing footy with his mates and pretty much having a go at everything.
Did you ever think you were going to join the cops? What made you join the cops?
Yeah, great question. I actually had no intention of joining the cops until, I can even tell you the bloke's name. The police came to Burrigal High School, is where I was at the time, during about halfway through year 12, and they gave a talk about policing. And interestingly, and I'll refer to this later, but they were both 6 odd in height, big men, and spoke about what policing's like. And that day I just went, that's me. Problem was, as you can see, I'm not quite 6 foot tall, and I'm
What,
certainly
5'11" and a half, eh?
yeah, not quite. But anyway, the physical attributes certainly weren't there. But it's an interesting question, mate. I from that day I went, I think that's me.
Yeah.
So that's where I headed.
And what is it about a profession like the cops that attracts someone like you? And look, what I do know about you, and read your book, and we know people in common, and I've seen you over the years. You wouldn't have been the most tame. I don't know if that's probably the wrong word, but you would have been a bit wild in your younger days.
You know what? You're 100% right, and I'm not going to dob myself in for anything, but.
I think there's a statute of limitations.
Oh, beauty.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
if you're a juvenile anyway. So not full disclosure.
Look, I had a very strong ethic in terms of criminality from a kid. It's just the way I was brought up. I hated criminals. Like I genuinely did, even at that age.
Yeah.
So then when the police come along and they explain all the things they do, and it just seemed like the world's biggest footy team. It's very lame, but in a sense, that's what it meant, and later on we'll talk about what I now know it means and why it meant so much to me. But essentially, look, I just sounded like a fantastic, great job, and that with my views on the world at the time as a 17-year-old kid, thankfully for me, it married up perfectly.
Seemed like the right fit. And you've used in your book the analogy of football and liking it to the police. I fully get that. I do understand it because policing is a team sport.
Everything is about the team sport, and I know media, social media, the world loves this sniper, single bloke. There's no such thing. It's just not the way it's run. It's not the way policing's run. It's not the way investigations are run, obviously. And listening to your previous podcast, that yes, there's the figurehead that people see, but the truth of the matter is every single operation depends on the team and everybody contributing equally. So. That's the cops all over, really, in the big picture.
I think that experience we get as young people growing up, whether it's a man or woman, playing team sports, I can almost pick when I've got a team, an investigative team or a team put together in the cops, those who have played team sports and those who haven't. Would you care to comment on that?
That's absolutely correct. You really see that being in a team, and let's talk as kids originally, you learn to accept that there's somebody's not as skillful as you or not as whatever title you want to use as you, but you learn to accept that they're in my team and they'll contribute the best they can contribute.
Yeah.
And that's different for everybody. And that's, I think, when later on in life I've learned about a leader, it's not about necessarily everybody contributing at the highest level because you've got people who have varying levels of ability. And it's learning how to manage that for the team's benefit and keeping everybody on board. So, but yeah, you're right. The whole team concept as a kid, you're right. I see attitudes of people that play singular sports, golf, tennis, the like.
It's completely different.
It's completely different. And they are different. They have a different mindset. It's all about them, whereas team work and team people are about the team.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it's something that I have definitely seen through my career and reading through your book, it just made me reflect on it, the significance of the skills that you learn as being part of a team. And you're quite right. When we talk sniper, I don't think there's anyone, unless they're being directly involved in, thinks anything other than it's one person on their own.
Yeah, that's right. Couldn't be
got
further from the truth.
You've got a role to play, but you've got a whole team around you supporting
100%.
you. Okay, so how old were you when you joined the cops?
Mate, I was actually 18 years when I went into the academy. So I went in on the July 90, and I turned 19 in October 1990.
It's pretty scary how young you are.
Mate, I've got a 17-year-old daughter, I've got a 16-year-old son, and I just look at them and think, holy hell. 18 months on from where my daughter is, I was at the academy.
And you come out with all these powers, extreme powers, take people's liberty and everything else that goes with that. You've got all that responsibility and you put on a uniform and you're meant to have all this life experience as well.
I remember very early in my days, so I started at Eastwood in January 91, and I went to this domestic. It might have been literally 3 weeks since I'd been in the cops. And 40-odd-year-old couple, and this bloke looked at me and he said, mate, because I was telling him where he was going wrong in life, and he looked at me and he said, mate, I've got kids older than you. And I said, and they tell you to pull your head in too. But it's true.
Combat.
But it's true. They're looking at, mate, you look at me now and have a laugh, but if you think about me now, I'm, for the record, 79 kilos.
Yeah.
I was 70 when I joined the cops. So I can imagine I looked like 12-year-old coming in and telling you how to
Dressed
behave
in a
yourself.
uniform.
Dressed in a uniform
walk
that
into
didn't fit
someone's
anyway.
home and tell them how to conduct their relationships.
100%. And as you said, day one in the cops, you've got as much power and responsibility and accountability as a 30-year veteran. So it blows your mind when you actually think about that we've got 19-year-old kids out there, which I was one, and we've entrusted so much on them and placed them in such a difficult position, I would suggest.
What sort of traits did you look to the more senior police as role models or people that you thought you could learn from?
Oh, look, I was absolutely gifted when I went to Eastwood. I had a couple of sergeants that were just outstanding humans. Get away from policing, they were just outstanding humans, and that rubbed off on us. And it was, and I'll give them the rap, mate. The Greg Ashursts of the world, the Bobby Porters of the world, for me, were just outstanding mentors. A lot of tough love from them, as far as us. Well, mate, you might have used the word a bit earlier. I'll use it. I was a bit loose when I was young. And that didn't change too much when I first joined the cops and got into police footy. But their guidance in those early years has certainly put me in good stead later on down the track.
I think all young police have to acknowledge that, the lineage that's passed on by those experienced police. And, there for the grace of God go I. The people that get led astray quite often have just been teamed up with the wrong people, the wrong role models, because you come out of the academy and you're so fresh-eyed, you have no idea what you're doing. It's just terrifying going on the streets, and you look to the more experienced people, and if you've got experienced people steering you in the wrong way, it can set a path for your whole career.
You've got to, people need to understand that, again, we put a 19 or 20-year-old on the street day one and they've got a 22-year-old guiding them where they're going. If that 22-year-old's off kilter, they think it's normal. They think this is the way it works. Whereas, and I hate saying it, back in my day, there were still very much young people around, and Jace Evers was actually one of my...
We'll talk about Jace.
We'll get to Jace later. Bloody grand final. We talk about, but you still had that guidance of those older people thereabouts to kick in the bum when you required it and certainly give you that mentorship.
And I think it's fair to say, as young police officers, we all made mistakes. I made mistakes. I didn't know. You're not sure how you're meant to react to a certain situation. You've got to make these decisions, and people that pull you aside and point you in the right direction, I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, and look, you're 100% right. Every police officer, as a young person, doesn't matter what age they join, will make mistakes.
Yeah.
The issue is with society is how do they tolerate those mistakes? Because often we get they should be sacked. Well, do we sack industrial relations laws? Because I've been into HR since leaving the police. Is that the law? Do we sack everybody who makes a mistake in their workplace? I know police are different. The role's different, but they're still humans.
It is difficult because there is so much scrutiny now on police, and without going into the issues that have emanated from America and the incidents over here, but when the current times for a police officer, everything they do is scrutinised, and it makes it harder. I'm not saying that it's wrong, the scrutiny. We're there to serve the public, so we deserve to be scrutinised, but it does make it harder. And I've got kids at the age where they could join the police if they want, and I wouldn't distract them from it, but I'd be very mindful how difficult it would be starting out in a career these days.
Mate, I cannot even fathom having the scrutiny that they do now than from when I joined. But again, I go back to if society genuinely wants to treat police the same as we treat everybody else, errors are made. The level of that error is actually what the issue is, isn't it? Did they make a known conscious decision to go outside the rules, and why did they do that? Versus someone just outwardly doing a criminal act or performing a criminal act, not tolerated. Don't accept it at all. Yeah. But police are human beings.
I've said in the leadership role in the cops during the time when I was in that area where I was running teams, I would accept if people made a mistake out of, I'll call it stupidity, but a genuine mistake trying to do the right thing. What I didn't tolerate is when people made mistakes through laziness. That was a bugbear of mine. If you're going to stuff up because you're trying to do something good, but don't stuff up because you're lazy.
Yeah, so you're 100% right. When you talk about you've got some decisions to make or some actions, and inaction is as bad as taking the wrong action. But you're right. I will take every day of the week someone that's made an error because they're having a go as opposed to somebody making an error because they're being lazy.
Yeah, because it's a very safe path to walk if you do nothing in the police, because it's very hard to get into trouble if you do nothing.
Plenty of people have been promoted on it.
Successful career out of doing nothing. We might discuss that a little bit later. So, your football career, you were playing at a good level, and you at one point in time you wanted to make a career out of it, or at least have a go.
Oh.
But something, and interestingly, that you've read in your book, and this may be considered an in-joke, but people who've listened to the podcast, the very first guest I had on it was Jason Evers. Now, Jason Evers was my work partner for 9 years, and quite frankly, during the podcast, he just put shit on me for the hour and a half. But reading your book, apparently he cost, was it Ride Eastwood?
Ride Chatswood, yes.
Ride Chatswood a grand final for his selfish play on the football field. Do you want to just expand on that?
Yeah, Jace, I've never forgotten it. Police footy, when I joined, was just fantastic. Like, it was such a camaraderie thing. And look, there'll be others that have a different view of it. But we had a pretty successful team at Ride Chatswood for 91 through to about 94. And, yeah, we've never let Jason live it down that in a particular grand final against the Wombats, eastern suburbs, everyone hates them. Jace made a break, and all he had to do was draw the fullback and pass me the ball, and I literally would fall over and score the try, and he tried to dummy, which he was no good at, and our mate kept him, tackled him, and we didn't win.
It's funny you tell me that story, because I've spent 9 years with him, virtually living with him for 9 years, working very closely, and he never once mentioned the fact that he lost the grand final.
Well,
single-handedly.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting that myself and my other great mate Fudgy remind him of it every time we see him.
Well,
so
glad
we've never let him live it down. And Jace, how you going, bud?
I certainly will, and I think I might send him the book and
please,
and draw his attention to a particular page.
Good.
So through the football, and there's it's part of the makeup or why your path took the way it did. You got injured playing football and shoulder reconstructions and whatnot.
Yeah, I not necessarily police footy, but I had both my shoulders reconstructed before I was 20.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, 14 weeks ago, I had my left shoulder replaced at a young age of 49.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, again, football about that team work thing was just, I just lived it. That's what I was. That's who I was. And I think when people see that in you, there's other, in your life, and you're 100% right. You see that as a leader when you see people come in that have been involved in team sport, and you go, yeah, they're the ones we want. So for me, it opened doors, so to speak. So.
And so through your career, and I'm at an advantage here having read your book, but you went from Eastwood up to Newcastle.
That's correct, yeah.
And when you were at Newcastle, and this was around the time that football wasn't an option for you anymore because of the injuries, but you were on a job where you saw some tactical police turn up. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, so I was 5 years in to the cops, and I'd never been to a siege. I'd never seen any of how that all worked. And on this particular day, I ended up over at a siege at Carrington. And
just for the listener, Carrington up
in Newcastle.
Suburb of Newcastle.
Yeah. And that's the first time I'd ever seen a siege. And in those days, whatever they were called, SWAT. It wasn't TRG in the country areas, but anyway, it just was intoxicating to a young man that wanted to, had just lost his career path, so to speak, when it comes to sport, and the teamness, the belonging, which I'll get to later. Yeah. To see the way they operated, to see the way it worked, I was just like, that's me.
Describe it, what you saw through your eyes.
Yeah,
five years in the cops, and you hadn't seen that type of side of the policing.
Yeah, so I suppose I need to explain Eastwood very quickly. So 5 years into the cops, I'd spent all at Eastwood.
Yep.
It was fantastic, great time, loved it. But policing was a little bit of a backstory to our social life and all the rest of it. So to come up here and then be whacked in the face with these blokes, and they are, at the time it was all men, and they were just absolutely team focused, hearing the briefing, seeing how they operated. Everybody knew their role. It was very succinct, very bang, 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 go, do this, that. And to watch them all do it, it was just really, I just watching this teamwork thing go and go, bloody hell, that's what I'm missing. That's what I need to get in my life. So from that single day, I was on a path to get in.
And you weren't a gun nut, or
shit,
you
no.
weren't into. No, you can say it on the podcast.
No, yeah, I know, yeah, I don't know.
We give them a warning before.
Let's be clear.
Yeah.
I have never owned a gun in my life.
Yeah.
I've gone shooting, but that was just more a social thing with hanging out with some people. But I was never a gun nut. I am not a gun nut. I actually only 2 years ago recently got my shooter's license, and that was only for work, for a job I had at the time. But no, there's nothing about guns that I have any passion about.
Okay, so it wasn't you looking at the tactical police and say, look at their guns. I want
not
to be
at
part of that. It was the professionalism.
It really was. Well, it was the professionalism. It was the teamwork, and you just saw it. But ultimately, what really attracted me, they just had this. That it was oozing, do not mess with us.
Yeah.
And I just went, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Let's
go.
No,
it is impressive when you see a good tactical team.
I will point out that I was a little bit unsure if I'd be successful, because looking at these guys, and I have a laugh because I'm now friends with some of those people. So as I said, I'm a giant at about 170 centimetres tall and 79 kilos. They were all at least 6 foot tall. They were all 30 years of age, if not older. I was none of that, and I'm thinking, will they let me in? Is essentially what was going through my mind. But anyway, I said no, I'll have a crack at that, so I did.
And what was the steps? What did you have to do to get in?
Literally then, and still today. So you've got part-time tactical policing all around New South Wales. So I applied straight away to join the local part-time team. At the time, it was called State Protection Support Unit. Which I did.
So just to give people an understanding of what we're talking about there, within the city, we've got the Tactical Operations Unit.
Yes.
And then in the country areas or regional areas, they've got a support unit, the State Protection Support Unit, SPSU.
Yeah, I think they've changed the title again now.
They always change the
titles. It's been 5 years. So for very rough numbers, don't quote me on the numbers today, there's 60 full-time tactical operatives based in Sydney in the Tactical Operations Unit. And then, of course, because of the time frame to get to the country areas, there's part-time tactical operators who would be your normal GDs, your normal highway, your normal detectives, who are provided an extraordinary amount of training, and they would be that first initial response to an incident. And if it's required, the full-time guys would come up from Sydney or down, depending where you are in the state.
So what's the process? You make an application, you put in an application. How do you get accepted?
Yeah, back then... we're talking 96. Basically, it was throwing an application. You went through. It was similar to a bull ring. It was actually quite an interesting.
A bull ring for detectives is where you get bounced by some cranky detective sergeants and.
100%. Yeah. I had to do this interview in front of three what I would have termed busted up old blokes.
Yep.
And I was 24, going on 25 at the time, and so I just had nothing I had no similarities with them, and they asked me all these questions, and I think I write in the book, all my answers were so rehearsed, it was so bullshit. It was just tell them what they want to hear, because I'd worked out what they wanted to hear. But at some stage of that interview, they asked me a question, and I can't quite remember it right now what it was, but I basically said, when I'm stressed out, I either go for a run or I go and punch the bag or I'll do whatever. There's the ways I deal with stress, and it was only at that point that I feel within the interview that they sort of went, no, maybe this is.
They saw you as a
maybe this is the
saw you as
need.
a real person.
Yeah. So luckily enough for me back then, got taken on as a trainee, and look, times have changed. If you wanted to talk about bastardisation, holy hell, mate, that was into the fire. But I'm very cognizant of the fact that we've all learnt from our previous generations, and they did what they knew was best at the time. But for that first few months, it was just bastardisation.
It's interesting you'd say that, and there was something in your book, and that has just reminded me of it, that where you said, and this is where you just joined the cops, and and this is where you're in the initial training down the academy, that the parade sergeant that day screamed, 1,500 people applied for 320 positions you filled. If you were the best, I hate to see the other 1,200 dead shits that missed out. I knew right there that I was in the right job. Yeah. That's what you said. So you liked, I take it you're one of the people that liked the bastardisation.
I don't know if I liked it, but I understood it.
Yeah.
Were they good at it? Did it serve a purpose? Yes, it does serve a purpose. I know there's a thousand bad stories of bastardisation,
Yeah.
but the realities are, whether you call it bastardisation, whether you call it any other terms, you need a process to expose people to the environment that you think they want to work in or they want
Yeah.
to work in, and you need to weed people out. It's as simple as that.
I thought down the academy part of it, and I quite enjoyed it too. I like that side of it. It was simple. If you're going to yell at me, I know what you want and how to react and all that. I quite enjoyed that side of it. And I remember someone during PT threw up and they made him do push-ups over where he vomited. And I thought, no, this is a job I like. This is real. But I got the sense they were breaking you down to rebuild you and get you to, because it's a semi-disciplined organisation, get you to obey the orders. And that seemed to be part of it too.
Yeah, certainly. And I think what people need to understand is plenty of us think we would like to do a particular role.
Yeah.
And that particular role takes particular skills and attributes, and you need to be exposed to things to see if you've got them or you don't. Now, if you're no good at that, well, your skills and attributes might actually fit a different role. But in the cops, like let's be the most basic level, if you can't handle a parade sergeant screaming at you from 15 centimetres away and giving you a gobful verbally, how are you ever going to deal with the realities of policing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and there will be people that will say, "Oh, Brett, bastardisation is a bad thing." I'm going to say, no, it's not even close. Like as you said, day one, as a 19-year-old kid, you have invested in you that ultimate power that if the worst case scenario, you can take life.
Yeah.
If you can't handle somebody screaming at you because you're square gating or you're not marching right or whatever the case is, do you honestly think you are capable of that? And the other thing is now, when you talk about industrial relations, are we setting that person up for failure?
Yeah, because it also taught you, and you didn't realise at that stage, but it also taught you not to react, because you're going to get baited and provoked every day you walk out in a police uniform or carry out the role of a policeman. But it's interesting. I know it's changed. I don't know. I think I'd feel like I'd miss out a little bit. I did the TRG course when I was in uniform. I also did the SPSU course and I did the close personal protection course. I loved all three of them. By the time I was doing the close personal protection course, I was a little bit older, a little bit more senior, and I wasn't as responsive to people yelling at me as I was when I was young in the TRG. But I knew why they were doing it, and I understood what they were doing it for.
I mean, obviously, I've been out of the police now. It'll be 10 years in December, and I'm certain things have changed. Maybe we just didn't articulate well back then why we do these things and what we're trying to measure. I'm actually very certain that now we would be able to say, we're going to put you through we're going to put you through scenarios that have direct workplace linkages to understand, do you have the skills and the attributes that will set you up for success? And if you don't, as an organisation, we're going to set you up for failure. So that's why I use the word weed out. People probably wouldn't like that, but that's the reality of it. There's lots of things about tactical policing, and actually, I don't want to jump ahead, but you might ask later, the realities are skills and attributes that make you a very good tactical police officer don't necessarily make you an easy person to live with.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's true.
Yeah.
And people think utopia is that we can have men and women for that matter, but we can have men and women that we ask go and do what the boys did at Lint Siege. And yet then we want them to go and do a kindergarten class talk and be the world's nicest person. Yeah. They don't marry up. Yeah. That doesn't exist.
Yeah, I understand. We create someone to do a certain role, and you've got an expectation by creating them. It's going to change them as a person.
Well, it does, and particularly to instances like that. Let me be very clear. I don't care if the person's a nice person. But if he's going to stand left or right of me and I'm going into that situation, I want to absolutely know that they're up for it, and that the whole selection, assessment and training program is designed to understand as best we can without putting you through it, are you going to aim up?
Well, but putting down the basics of the training, and we'll go into more detail because I think the audience would be fascinated what actually goes on with the training to get a sense of it. But at the most basic level, when you're stripping firearms, and then you're stripping firearms with a blindfold on, then you're stripping firearms where you're getting yelled at, and if you've lost that piece where you've got a blindfold on, everyone in your team is doing push-ups until you find that piece, that type of pressure. But when you're out in a job and you have a stoppage or a problem with your firearm, thank Christ they put you through that, because it becomes like your memory. It just under pressure, you can just
so
retain it.
Your motor muscle memory is exactly that, and unfortunately, I actually lived that experience.
Yeah.
But again, people on an outside will say, well, that's ridiculous. Why are you putting pressure on them to do it with their eyes blind? And I said, it's got nothing to do with them being able to put the gun together with their eyes blindfolded or whatever. Again, if you can't take the pressure of somebody yelling at you because you can't put a gun back together correctly and your mates are doing push-ups, even that instance, and I know Lint Siege is the most obvious, and people talk about it often, that level of pressure is 1,000 times bigger than anything you've ever done in training.
Yeah.
So if you can't handle that in training, again, we're setting you up to fail. And failure is that if we allowed the people that weren't quite up for that into that Lint Siege situation, that they wouldn't contribute in their team effort as they should. Yeah. And that places everybody in danger.
Yeah, I think I like the psychology of the training and getting people to that level. And as you said, and you checked me on it, not elite, and I understand that when I talk elite, but I'm talking the squad, the perception of the squad as individuals. But I think that very thing that you're saying you're not elite is because it just comes through repetition, practice, and they make the good operators.
Yeah, and look, there's core attributes and traits, I suppose is the word I'll use, that would be absolutely consistent across people that are successful in that career. And again, probably something that how do I describe it? Probably something that hasn't been done well in the past, and again, I'm 10 years out, is that when someone has been deemed unsuccessful, and this could be applied to trying to get into the detectives as well. When you've been deemed unsuccessful, that we actually articulate in a better way to say, okay, look, your skills and attributes probably don't match this line of work, but you'd probably be, they match over here. So it's not that you're a failure, it's not that you're a disgrace or any of these other big words that have been used in the past, that your skills and attributes actually probably don't marry up as well as we need.
Yeah, and I think that's the way of looking at it. You're not a failure because you can't pass a course. That's not where your skills lie.
Correct, and I'll put my hand up. And a lot of my mates are detectives, which is hilarious. I've got to tell you, I do not possess the skills or the attributes to be a detective. Never have, never will, and I'm comfortable with it.
I think it'd be fair to say a lot of detectives don't possess the skills to work in the tactical operations unit.
Yeah, that's right, and that's okay.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I'm very at ease that there's things that I'd be no good at.
Yeah,
and I accept that.
So with the course, taking back to it, so you've seen a tactical team. Yep. They've impressed you by the way they conduct themselves and went about their business. You made an application. You got into the SPSU.
Yep.
You sent on a course. What was the course they sent you on?
Yeah, so back in when was that? Back in '97, I went on the SPSU operators course, which was a 3-week course back
Singleton then. Army base. Did you do a lot?
No,
of it there?
I did mine at Goulburn actually.
Right.
And look, again, the minute you were there, you just realise, or I did, that this is exactly what I want to be part of. The teamwork and everything was about teamwork. If you failed to do something, your mates paid the penalty. Not you, they did. Yeah. And that is true because every operation we do, we've all got a unique role to play within that operation. And it doesn't matter if it's Lint Siege, your bloody domestics where they end up in sieges. Everybody's got a different role to play, and the team success absolutely relies on the individual doing their part. So the 3-week course, it was all guns and, pull them apart, put them back together, all that type of thing. But I want people to understand that the issue of firing a firearm, right? The skill of firing a firearm is like an apprentice learning how to use a power saw, right? It is the same. It's a gun's a gun, right? It's as simple as that. What is the difference is the mental application of, okay, I can teach you all the skills in the world, but I actually need you to understand think about what you're doing. You're shooting at a paper target, but in reality, I'm teaching you to try and, in the worst case scenario, you're going to be shooting at a human. So it's bigger than teaching someone how to shoot. You can teach a monkey how to shoot a gun, quite literally. But you can't teach a monkey how to have that thought process. And as I think the public found out of the back of Lint Siege, every single police officer in New South Wales has the same level of authority and ownership around that decision to fire your weapon or not. It's not America. It might have changed, and I think it might have, but don't quote me. But nobody in New South Wales Police back then could direct anybody else to fire their weapon.
Yeah.
And people didn't understand that. And that's a big deal. So we need to train people who have that ability to apply logic, and there's a whole lot of other big words, but it's a bloody big deal.
Well, in the sniper role, when you were a sniper, there was no one that could tell you take the shot.
Correct.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So you've got that autonomy, and that's what people have got to understand. That with policing, I'm sure it's different in the military or whatever, but in policing, that power to take someone's life is a decision. The power is invested in the individual officer, and
Correct.
no one can direct them to.
Yeah, so it's called a superior order, and back then, certainly through my time, but even up to Lynch Siege, as I said, it might have changed. There was no way in New South Wales that anybody could direct anybody. Don't care if you're the world's greatest sniper, your boss couldn't tell you to shoot someone. And even then, that you may have the great capabilities, you could be the world's most accurate shooter. It's irrelevant. Yeah. It's the brain, it's the thought process, it's the legal justification on you as the individual, and it's the police rules and guidelines and is very, very clear. Somebody's life must be in imminent danger of being killed or seriously injured, and there is no other way to stop that event occurring.
Yeah, it's very, very clear, isn't it?
It's crystal clear. But as we've seen with every incidents where police have had to use lethal force, it's very subjective or objective depending on where you sit.
Yeah. The skill set that you get is on going to SPSU. So they teach you how to use a shotgun.
Yeah, back then, 870 pump action shotgun. Back then, an AR-15. We still had 38s back then. But again, they're just a couple of little tools that you learn to use. But it's the mindset, it's the tactics, which is really what they're teaching. So,
and the type of tactics we're talking about, building entries.
Yes.
Observation on perimeters, bushcraft, that type of skill set.
Yeah, so the principal operating theology around tactical policing is surround, contain, negotiate.
Yep.
Because I can tell you quite simply, if anybody tells you that they want, a tactical police officer for that matter, I mean, if anybody tells you they want to do a building entry, they're crazy, right? Because the realities are no one can guarantee that you're going to come out the other end. The offender could be the most drug, alcohol-induced lunatic in the world. They don't have to be good at firing a gun. If they've got a gun and they squeeze the trigger and the bullet's flying, well, that could kill the world's greatest operator. You know what I mean? So the police have worked very much so since 91 of surround, contain, negotiate. But when you think about that holistically in principle, and you think about the police tactical operations model, presence. Presence is a tactic. And as you can imagine, there's a difference in a criminal's mind when there's presence of a couple of GDs, maybe a couple of detectives, as opposed to a SWAT team around their head. Well, generically, what people don't understand as a SWAT team. Just their presence is different, and their presence sends a very clear message. And it's worked phenomenally well in Australia because that presence makes people think twice.
It does, and it's nothing more intimidating than some experiences I've had where people are going in to rob a bank, and where with tactical team, if I was with the SPSU or secondment with the TAU, and you're waiting in the van ready for the bad guys to come into a bank and put a gun to someone's head, and then you jump out of the back of the van and action a pump action shotgun and point it at them. Yeah, there's some very hardened criminals go to water when they see that.
Oh, look, I would love $1 for every briefing that I had where the criminal had been telling associates or whomever, I'm not going down with it, I'm going down in a blaze of glory and I'm going to shoot as many as I can and all the rest of it, I'll never be taken alive. And they look out the window and go, oh, that ain't going to work very well here. And that's part of that is an absolute tactic.
And you're quite right. The presence, the aura, the way you move, the way you go about your business in the tactical teams, everyone, you stand back. It's got the don't fuck with me look about it.
Yeah.
It really has.
And look, the Bearcat only came in right on probably the last 5 years of my career. But the Bearcat, that fundamentally changed what we did.
Yeah.
Still did surround contain.
Do you want to just describe that to the public?
Yeah, so the Bearcat is a brand of a armoured vehicle. And look, in history, in my earlier days, when we surround, contain, negotiate, you'd put tactical operators all around the perimeter. You'd have an alpha team or a team that, in worst case, had to go in, would be there ready to go. But it was all very, covert to begin with, and then, by the way, a phone call gets made by the negotiators and we're here, or the loud hailer. The way it happens now is, yes, the guys will still going in on the perimeters, but you drive a bloody 8-ton Bearcat up into the driveway and go, hello, we're here.
Yeah.
Clearly...
Oh, you're serious now?
Yeah, the moment is right. Okay, I'm not taking on a poor couple of GDs. I'm not taking on a poor couple of detectives. Right, if I want to turn it on, my words, clearly not.
Yeah.
It ain't going to end well.
Yeah.
And again, it's worked phenomenally well.
Yeah. The intimidation factor, and as you said, it's a legitimate tactical option.
Yeah, correct.
So with you got through the SBSU, of course, otherwise
Yes.
we wouldn't be sitting here telling this story. So clearly I think people have worked out that you got through it. Can you remember the first job you did when you actually kitted up? Because I know
Yes.
it's a sense of responsibility and you go, this is real.
So my first job I actually arrived on scene as the first tactical operator.
Okay, not what you wanted first up.
Yeah, it was at a cemetery in Belmont, and at night, and a guy was threatening self-harm, and so you imagine me. So back then I was 25, going on 26. I rock up, mate, again in my black overalls, thinking I'm all pretty good, and the inspector at the time looks at me, and interestingly, soon as inspectors. All police see a tactical operator, they sort of sigh of relief. Oh, good, I've got someone here that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
This is my first job.
Yeah.
And he goes, mate, got a bloke in the middle of the cemetery with a gun, threatening self-harm.
And
that whole...
And you can't go call the police.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that whole concept of someone's threatening self-harm with a firearm, well, how do we actually deal with that?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be engaged in a shootout with someone that's trying to self-harm. You get the picture. That's a really strange situation, which happens every day.
It is time and time again, people are threatening suicide. Well, as police, you can't go in and shoot them because
Correct.
they're threatening suicide.
That's not the outcome we're after.
Yeah.
Look, that was a really interesting night, and funnily enough, so I snuck around and crawled on my guts and all the rest of the stuff, trying to locate this person. But I remember being on the perimeter, and these two, and one of these gentlemen now is one of my best mates, so I can talk about him. I hear these two blokes sneaking up behind me, and two snipers.
Yeah.
And they had night vision, which I didn't have, which was a massive bonus. And grumbly voices, and they'd know me because they'd met me on the course. And, and it was so interesting. You're talking those blokes back then with 15, 20 years experience.
Yeah.
And they went, young fella, don't be there. You need to be back here. Or, because I was in a little bit too close, and it was just, okay. But the inspector thought I was the genius. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was great, and I'm so lucky to call those two blokes still my great mates. So.
But even in that tactical thing, and it's interesting, and I know the pressure and that first job where you're loading your rifle, you're loading the shotgun or whatever, and you're thinking, and you're putting the vest on, the helmet, and you think this is serious.
Yeah,
and,
it is.
And all of a sudden, all the training, all the fun goes out the door, and you go, right, fucking switch on, and you got to be ready.
And it's an interesting dynamic. Everything you've just said correct. And the fear of being shot and all those sorts of things. The biggest fear? Making a mistake. Peer pressure in tactical policing is so immense that we have such this attitude that we do not make mistakes. The pressure in that alone is a very, very interesting hurdle to overcome.
I'm glad you say that, because I'm thinking I just been a wimp about it, and it wasn't the fear of the danger of getting shot or whatever. It was stuffing up in front of these other people that you work with, and I think that's, if we're all honest, that would be unique across the board. You don't want to be the person that stuffed up an operation. You don't want to, when you're creeping into the building, be the person that tripped and made the noise and woke the crook up. But just simple things like that.
That pressure is real. And that's amongst everybody, and it takes a long time, and I can tell you it does take a long time to have the confidence in yourself to know the decisions you're making are right. It's real. That pressure of, I do not want to make a mistake because the team will tear me apart.
Yeah.
Or you're right, I don't want to, like I did a job up at...
And and just the consequences of your mistakes are very large and very real.
So we talk about those real life and death consequences, but I can tell you even similar in '98, my first ever country job was at Grants Beach or Port Macquarie, 400 kilos of heroin coming into the beach on some boats. Could you imagine?
I remember
and it was
that
so
job.
covert.
That was a big job.
It was a massive job, and it was so about being covert. You imagine as a young, that was my first job. You imagine the thought in my mind going through, don't worry about whether I'm going to get shot at or not. It was irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
Don't stuff up. Don't be the one that blows this 2-year international investigation because you've stuck your head up when you shouldn't have.
Look, I utmost respect to anyone that spent any time in those units. And I see some of the blokes that we know, Hickey and Rene and all that, they were there when I was there.
Yeah.
And they've been there 20 years or whatever. The pressure that job, and people think, I'm identified as a homicide detective, and the pressure. Yeah, if I make a mistake, it gets scrutinised in the courts. If you guys make a mistake, the tactical police make a mistake, it gets scrutinised right there, right then. And I just full credit, that is the sharp end of the policing. And if shit happens, you are the last line of defence. And that's what I remember in the times that I spent there. Fuck, if we can't deal with this, who does? And so there is pressure there. But it's interesting you say that fear of failure, because I think that drives a lot of people. And to overcome that for a long period of time, utmost respect, or anyone that is prepared to put themselves in that position.
I'll even take back the fail a bit, fear. I remember when I was an instructor, I used to use the word scared or fear, whatever it was. And you see these new young up-and-coming tactical operators who, think they're as tough as all hell and all the rest of it, when I would say scared, fear, all that, and they'd look at me thinking, mate, we're
tough guys.
We're tough. We're not scared. I said, well, if you're not scared, I don't want you working with me.
Yeah,
because fear is a beautiful attribute to have, because it stops you doing dumb things. Building clearances, as you said, is an example. And I'd teach, if you've got this uneasiness, if you've got this fear that you haven't cleared that room properly, or you haven't cleared the room properly, go back and do it again.
Trust your fears.
Trust your fears. Your fears are a very good thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, we look to be able to deal with our fear, and that's one of the key attributes that I would say. Having fear is great. What we need is people that can recognise the fear, but also make conscious decisions to deal with it.
Did you find you got conditioned to the pressure situations?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll give one of my old mates a rap here. We used to talk about, we'd have a briefing and we'd come up with a game plan, especially rush jobs or reactionary jobs, and young, keen as mustard people. But a particular gentleman who I'll call Reggie, he knows who he is, so do the other boys. We called him the voice of reason, because all us young blokes would be coming up with these game plans and, right, we'll do this, we'll do this. And at the very end, he'd just go, have you thought about this? And he'd been there, he'd seen it, he'd done it 1,000,000 times more than us. And yes, and one thing that he said to us once when we were talking about assessing people coming into the unit, and it was the most thoughtful thing, and it's stuck with me ever since. We were assessing this young bloke, and we were saying, no, he's rubbish, and no, he didn't display this, and he didn't display that, and that scenario, he didn't do it well. And he just piped up and he said, boys, can I just remind you, you were judging this bloke through your now known experiences and attributes and all the rest of it. What were you like when you were his age?
Good point.
5 years, it's a great point. It was like, you're judging him now with your 7, 8 years, and in some of our cases longer than that, experience. What were you like when you were 23? Think back to where you were 23. Don't worry about the scenarios. What are the attributes he's showing? What are the traits that he's showing? Can we mould them? Can we coach them? Can we mentor them? And it was such an insightful thing. It was typical Reggie to talk like that. And it really made us all sit back on our chair and go, that's a really good point.
But isn't that, again, the beauty of that team environment, and everyone's got different set of skill sets? Because I always, I'm a risk taker at work in criminal investigation, and I always like to surround myself with a deep thinker, cautious type detective to balance out. I'm going, let's go. But have you thought about this? So it's similar to what you're talking about with Reggie.
And very much, yes, tactical policing as much as the police force is rank based.
Yeah.
But I can assure you, when it really gets to the pointy end, around actions and plans, it is not rank based. It is, if I'm asking 6 blokes to go into a building, yes, the team leader is going to come up with a plan, but I can assure you the 6 people that are involved, who are going to be at greatest danger, will have an input into it.
I noticed that with my observations with it, that it wasn't rank structured when the shit really hit the fan.
Correct.
And there was hard decisions to make. It was experience, and everyone contributed.
Correct.
And it makes a difference. So you got into SBSU.
Yes.
And so people understand what that involves. You carry on your normal duties as general duties police officer, but when the high risk situation that warrants the calling of tactical police, SBSU would get activated to deal with the situation or hold the situation until the TOU could travel there from Sydney. And I know just from my knowledge of the situation, you guys were pretty busy up around the Newcastle area, and with SBSU. So how often were you getting utilised?
Yeah, look, Newcastle was, we'd probably be getting a job every second week.
Yeah.
But after passing my course, I think it was October 97, so then I was an operative, for better word, and I just knew straight away, part-time's not enough. I want this.
So
I want this full time.
And what was that? That just felt right for you?
Oh, absolutely, it felt right for me. I won't say why my personal attributes made me think that way, but it did. I just went, I am a perfect fit for this.
Yep.
Maybe not physically, but in the mind and under the left chest,
Yeah.
I think I'm the right fit. So pretty much straight away, as soon as I passed my program in October 97, I then started going, right, when's the next selection program for the TOU? So the next, I'd actually already done selection straight up I did selection, in 96 for the TOU, which was a week-long course at Holsworthy.
And just explain that. So they put it out, it's open to anyone in the police?
Yeah, so they put it out and go, we're going to run this selection program. It's a week. I actually went down to an information day, which was great. Again, back then, though, it was all very physically based. Like, here's the standards, here's everything we're going to do, this is what you're going to be tested on. So really, though, the physical standards were about, can you get yourself to that standard in the first place through discipline or training? But that's just the starter.
Yeah.
The mind games. So that week in Holsworthy, was just smashed psychologically and physically.
Yeah.
So starve you to death, no sleep, wake up at 4 in the morning, give you a lecture on something, put you back to bed, wake up 2 hours later and you do a test on it and how'd you go?
Yeah.
All these other things,
just play with your mind.
Just playing with your mind, both mentally and also smashing you physically.
The smashing you physically. I remember throughout my career, I would use the police gyms. And you would see someone that you don't normally see in the gym all of a sudden become fanatical about their training. And you go, mate, what are you up to? You're looking fit.
Yeah.
Invariably, they were training up to do the selection course
program,
and really had to get themselves fit or they knew they had no hope.
Well, there is an allegation out there that a big fellow, I'll only use his first name, used the selection program as his yearly weight loss program. So it took him 4 years to get selected, but he knows who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah. People did the training and looked at the course again. Doing the course was not enjoyable by any stretch. Actually, I've heard the Knights coach recently say they've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's that week.
Yeah.
Just get used to feeling very not comfortable.
And part of that in what I've experienced is in those environments. That's when your true personality comes out. You see the people that break, you see the people that get angry, and you see the people that just knuckle down and get things done. And it does tell a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the people, the participants, work it out quicker than the staff. So the staff being the selection staff who are watching you like a hawk 24/7. But I can assure you, within the group themselves, they work out very, very quickly this person's either going to make it or they're not. Because it is just so obvious to you.
I was amazed. Some special forces guys asked me to help out with a boot camp for it was a private school rugby team. I won't mention mention the school, but over 2 or 3 days, just absolutely smashed these 17-year-olds and that. And you could, within the first couple of hours, you could tell the quality of the person just by what, it was, let's feed them, and then the moment they've finished their meal or halfway through their meal, take them out and run and wake them up early, get them doing this, get them doing that. And you could see the personalities come out. And they're probably, as teenagers, they're not as skilled as hiding their true personality, so you saw them come out very rapidly. But I thought that was interesting, and I can understand the whole process for... And you've made the comment, and I think that's so true, that if you're going through a door, you want to know the person with the gun beside you, in front of you, behind you, knows what they're doing. So I can understand the people running that course are doing it for a reason, because they're going to, whoever they accept through, potentially they could be working with. So.
Oh, absolutely, and you know, there's a lot of pressure on those people, actually, the selection staff, because you know a program is usually run by 6 or 8 people, but everybody else back in the unit will hold you accountable for the next few years to come. You selected that.
Is there part of that? Like, is it almost? It's like when you bring someone into a football team or into something, or a bikie gang, you vouch for that bloke.
100%. You and mate, and I'll open, and it's quite truthful. You know, the 6 that we went through, so my program, we did 33 started, 19 finished, and 9 got selected. So that was August 96. But we didn't actually get a start until January 98, and only 6 of us got a start.
Right. How many started out on the course?
33.
Yeah.
So
that's a high attrition rate.
Yeah, but I think as you found, what you'll find is over the years, because people actually start to work out what the program's about.
Yeah,
I would suspect the attrition rate's actually becoming less.
Yes,
because people are actually a bit more well informed now, and you know there were people that turn up there that just had no idea what they're getting into.
Yeah.
You know, they saw 15, which is true, and this is absolute. Even cops would see 15 seconds of footage of the team doing something really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, fast roping out of a helicopter, or you know, a vehicle stop, or go, wow, that's me. That's what I want to do. And you just think, mate, we sat in cars for 40 hours for that 15 seconds. So it's not all about the fun of the job. There's a lot of sitting around, hurry up and wait.
Now, just you've reminded me, and I'm having flashbacks to times in my career, but something in the book, and I had a bit of a laugh there, that you were sitting waiting for a job, the glamour of being the arrest team, and you talked about, it's great, you're in the excitement, but if you're sitting in a van for 8 hours and you've got to have a piss or whatever, how uncomfortable it is. And people don't realise how uncomfortable it is sitting there, not being able to talk in the back of a van, and to the point where you've got to keep moving your toes, because sometimes when the job's on, by the time you get up, your legs are numb.
Well, and that's exactly right. You know, you literally, I don't know what the record was. It was some ridiculous amount of hours, but yeah, you're sitting in a van. It doesn't matter if it's a van or a car, and you're expected to spring out of there like a spring coil, you know, and be able to react. In reality, anybody's body seizes up, and you. So you know, you got a bloody. We used to have a Rottweiler named Dax who just ate people, including police. Yeah. And having him slobbering all over you for 6 hours sitting in the back of a van, and the whole time you're worried that he's going to bite you.
So that's a lesser known side. That's the unglamorous side.
Well, actually, I talk about Dax. So the beauty of those dogs is we did a lot of work with them. So you got used to the dog and they got used to you. But the beauty of dogs is, I don't know what your experiences are, but they can smell fear.
Yeah.
So the beauty for me was I had Tim in my team, or 2 Tims actually, but one who joined and went through with me. Tim was so scared of dogs, the dogs bit him every time. It was beautiful. I could do anything to the dog, they'd leave me alone. Yeah. He just brushed them and the dog would bite him. It was great.
Go straight for Tim. Yeah, Poor Tim, he's traumatised. Is he getting help? The other thing, and a lot of sitting around waiting, like people see the sharp end of tactical policing, and it's go, the action, but the sitting around waiting, and I remember times, and you'd have a lot more experience, but laying in perimeters in the cold, and how cold it got at about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. That seemed to be the coldest time, whereas you think, if I've got to react now, I can't even move. I'm that numb. And your fingers, like, how do you operate it?
Mind-numbingly boring.
Yeah.
For hours and hours and hours, and then yes, you'd be expected to jump up like a cord spring and run and chase or do whatever you need to do, and that's the bit that people don't see, and that's the discipline of of being able to do it.
But that type of lifestyle obviously rocked your boat. You've got it part time, and that wasn't good enough. So you've gone. Yeah. You've done the selection course. Again, you wouldn't be here if you didn't get through it. So you got through the selection course, and then, as I think a lot of people don't fully understand, that's just the start of your training. That just sort of
it opens the door.
Yeah.
Literally, you walk into the TAU on day one. For me, January '98. You then have 6 months of hell, and that is exactly what it is.
And they're upskilling you.
So when I say hell, it's now the pressure is actually on to learn the skill and apply the skill in programs. So you had the SWAT program, which in itself back then was about 8 weeks. Then you go the bushcraft program, vehicle stop program, all these programs, but the pressure is actually on to pass, and it is not a given.
Yeah.
Plenty of people.
Because you've already given up your spot where you came from.
Yeah.
So you've said goodbye to your old workmates.
Correct.
You're
so
now
for me,
in the tactical operations unit. And again, the pressure on, you don't want to be the one coming back and go, oh, they kicked me out.
Well, for me, coming from Newcastle, there was no guarantee I'd go back to Newcastle.
Yeah.
And that's only for me, but it's the same for all the other boys. But, and again, then once you get to that level, getting through... Back then, and it may still be the same, like going and doing the TAU selection program was ballsy. So, and no one ever, if you didn't get in, it was like, oh mate, unlucky,
Yeah.
So there was never.
Yeah, you got to respect someone that's
correct, had a crack.
Yeah.
But once you're in, once you've got, then it becomes pride
Yeah.
about. I'm not going down there to fail. But as I said, the 6 months of programs is pretty intense, and again, the bastardisation was fantastic. I absolutely got it and why it worked and why it needed to be done. That being said, some of it absolutely went outside the mark, and I think I did talk about it in the book of Tim, who used to get bit by the dog a lot. He actually called on a bloke who now is one of my best mates, and I call him the Croat and busy Serbian. And it really pisses him off. But anyway, I do it for a reason. Yeah. He is the funniest man in the world and just has helped me immensely post Tumut. But he was going probably, in reality, a bit heavy on Tim. And Tim, to call him out in the way that he did was just... I think that... And Ilya just had immense respect for him after that. Right. So, righto, fair enough, mate. You've had the balls to come and say it to me. Yeah. I'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
Sort of.
There is an intimidation factor there. I must admit, when I did a secondment there, I'm thinking, just keep your head down. Don't stick it up too hard. And is it part and parcel? It's like because you spend so much time and there's downtime, so everyone can play off you. And you know each other, and you can chip away at people's weaknesses and have a bit of fun. But
so if I could tell you, and I hate using the words, but they talk about selecting the alpha male, and how many alpha males can there be? But essentially, that unit is you stick 60 alpha males in a room together.
See what happens. It's like a social experiment.
And there's some egos that go with it.
Yeah.
It is a social experiment, and you're quite right. In busy times, it's humming. Everybody's thinking. It's great. You're busy. In quiet times, people start climbing the walls and the egos clash, and it's hilarious that you could sell tickets to the show. It's that good. It was that good.
Yeah, I understand it. Entertaining. So you've got there. Now you're going to take another step or another direction within tactical policing, and that's to put yourself up there as a sniper.
Yeah, and the reasons would make people laugh. So during the SWAT program, it turned out that I was a crap shot. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, that wasn't the case, but
you can't have been too bad to get to that point.
Yeah. But what actually happened was what actually happened was, so we had to use our primary weapon. And back then, it was an MP5, and then go to your secondary, and this shoot that you had to pass. There was two parts, both your primary and your secondary, and I'd pass the primary bit and then miss the secondary. Then I'd miss the primary, then I'd hit the secondary, and it was just this. But you had to. The rules were you had to hit them one after the other. And it was interesting, they kept saying to me, slow down. And I didn't, I'm not critical of the coaching, but they actually weren't telling me the bit that I needed to slow down on. And it is only a couple of years later that I realised what part that was, and things were fine from there. But the reason I got into the sniper course was to learn how to shoot. Or be a better shot.
Enhance your
and understand the concepts of what makes a consistently accurate shooter. But the other was I loved bushcraft. When we did our primary bushcraft program, I love the jungle. I love being out in the bush. I do that I've walked Overland Track and Kokoda and all those places. I love being in the bush. So for me, it was the perfect chance to learn more about bushcraft, learn or enhance my skills with a firearm. So to me, it was perfect.
And so the pressure I see we talk about team, but the sniper, and I've seen the role of the sniper in action, and it does come down to I don't think there's many. Let me put it this way: forget the cops. I don't think there's many people in society that wouldn't feel the pressure. And when we see it, Hollywood, plays it out. The sniper take the shot and all that. The pressure. Now, there is no
And again, I'll go back to fear of making a mistake.
But it's like you've been drawn to it like a moth to a bright light.
Oh, look, I've always been a pretty.
Do you like the challenge? Is it about the challenge?
No, I just think I've always felt. What's the word? I've always felt confident in my decision making, and I genuinely thought that I was up for it. That wasn't until about 3 hours into the sniper course, when a particular instructor, but it was a very good point, and Lint Siege is a great example of it.
Yeah.
And he said to us, right, so we being in the TRU, we absolutely knew our rights and our legal obligations under rules of engagement and all the use of lethal force, all that. Like you could literally hang upside down backwards and rehearse it. And he said, but let me put this scenario to you. So which often happens. So there's been a siege going for 6 hours, and you're the relief sniper. You come on, and the crook. Making the threats like they do, and he puts a gun to a victim's head and you shoot him. Is that justified? And we all go, yeah, 100% it is. And he goes, right. So if I tell you that he did that same act 5 times in the previous 6 hours with the other sniper and he didn't shoot him, how does that work? And just that mind game there and then, and just went, oh. Now, there is, I could bore everybody with the way you would, in your own mind, calculate that and work that out for yourself. But it's a very good example, and the media do it, and society does it to us as police officers, not just snipers, of judging you on somebody else's reactions. And you said it earlier, and it's interesting, I say it at work currently in my current role, I have a bigger appetite for risk than anybody. But you need to be able to justify that and what controls you got in place and all the big words. But the realities are that challenge of if you make a decision to squeeze that trigger, it is solely on you to justify it. And you can imagine that pressure straight away. Look, mate, why didn't your buddy shoot him 5 times previously and you've come in and you've overreacted or whatever? You could see the way that would play out.
And the conflict here is the skills of a sniper is that it's just got to be calmness, breathing, heart, everything's got to come into balance, and you've got all these other factors going in. Like there's enough pressure if you were just sat here and said, as soon as you see that person, you take a shot. That's pressure because you might stuff up the role of a sniper. But from a police point of view and from your role, there's so many other factors that are going through your mind.
It's a complete oxymoron. If I go and teach you how to shoot a sniper rifle, it's control your breathing, be calm, get the heart rate, all this cool, calm stuff. Yeah. The reality of a police shooting, and let's talk about a poor old GD or a highway or a detective to begin with, their life is in danger. Yeah. There's nothing calm about it. It's a complete reaction to their life in danger. Now, in a sniper's world, you personally mightn't be the one that's in danger, but somebody's life is. So again, it's not about calm. It's not being calm at all. You need to be calm to effectively do your role. But the situation is violent or it's dynamic and this whole myth of the target moving in and around a victim, in and around your own teammates, because there's a fair Overwatch role of a sniper for the team and protecting them. There's so many moving things that it actually goes nothing with calm. There's such a dynamic situation going on, and you have to try and do that bit. But the reality is, as you mentioned it earlier, it's about that motor muscle memory that I've done this so many times previously at a range.
Yeah.
That actual technical ability to squeeze works. So
Yeah, pressure.
Yeah, it's a bit of pressure.
I just want to read something out from your book, and we'll take a break after this, but it just sort of puts things in perspective, because when I was reading this, it sort of brought the reality back to me. And this is an extract from your book. Having your life threatened by being shot at is a sensation thankfully most will never endure. Watching people being shot at whose bodies are trembling with fear attempt to take cover as you lie 30 metres away is equally a unique experience. That was a position I found myself in February 2001 after being sent to assist with a siege in a remote country location in southwestern New South Wales called Adjungbilly. It's heavy stuff.
Yeah, it was a very so that particular bit I was talking about was after laying in the bush for a day, pretty much. I didn't have my rifle in my hands. I had it in a drag bag, and I'm literally crawling on my back backward because I'd been recalled to go back to the command post. And I was in the middle of nowhere, and Crook come out and started shooting at the people who were 30 metres away from me. Now look, they were very capable, confident SPSU operatives with a couple of negotiators protecting them, but it was an experience because yes, rightly or wrongly, the TAU snipers would be seen as big brother, and you're here to protect us, and they're more than capable of protecting themselves. Let me be very clear. But that day,
that's your role, and look, we'll take a break, but we're talking about all the things that are factoring in to then perform at the level where you've got to take a shot under all those pressures. So let's take a break, 10-minute break, and we'll come back to part 2.
Sounds good.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate.
This podcast series is brought to you by True Crime Australia. Visit icatchkillers.com.au for additional materials such as articles on what you heard, videos and galleries. You can search for the I Catch Killers with Gary Jubilant official group on Facebook and join in with discussion. See you for the next episode of the podcast.